Welcome to World on Wheels. Today, we're going to talk about Ferrari and Lewis Hamilton once again. The Maranello team was living the dream season, or at least it seemed that way until they put the SF25 on the track. And if you enjoy the videos here on the channel, don't forget to subscribe so you can follow everything happening in the world of Formula One with us here on YouTube. The 7-time world champion arrived at Ferrari as a subscribe to our channel, Savior, hoping to lift the most traditional team on the grid out of a 17-year drought. Kimi Räikkönen was responsible for the last driver's title for the Scuderia way back in 2007. But considering the team performance of the Australian Grand Prix, we can say with absolute certainty that this won't be happening in 2025. Of course, it's still early, and the race was absolute chaos. But precisely in these situations that you expect one of the greatest drivers of all time to make up for any car deficits and do the unexpected. And that's not what happened. Lewis was stuck behind Alex Albon for almost half the race, and it's not as if the Williams driver had a faster car or even one close to Ferrari's performance. At the restart after the first safety car on lap 8, Leclerc was in 5th place, followed by Tsunoda, Albon, and Hamilton. By the time the safety car came out again on lap 34, Leclerc had built a 22-second gap to Albon, an average of more than 0.8 s per lap. Yet, Hamilton still couldn't make the overtake. The Maranello team left Australia heading for China with alarm bells ringing, just 5 points in the Constructors' Championship. Like and share. It's their worst start since 2009 when Räikkönen finished 15th and Felipe Massa didn't complete the race. Things started going off the rails on Saturday in Australia. Even with a Red Bull and a Mercedes out of Q3, Leclerc and Hamilton couldn't manage anything better than the 4th row of the grid. There was a lot of talk that the SF25's lack of pace was due to a wet weather setup, but that wasn't confirmed during the race. Or if it was the case, it clearly didn't work out. What was all love at the start of the season has already turned into a sea of complaints, both on and off the track. Hamilton communication with his race engineer, Riccardo Adami, who previously worked with Vettel and Sainz, didn't seem ideal, and at one point in the race, the driver seemed visibly frustrated. Subscribe to our channel. He even reported a gear sync issue before abruptly responding to further advice from his engineer. Off the track in Melbourne, Hamilton's post-race interview was practically a copy of his statements after the 2024 United States Grand Prix when he was still with Mercedes. It was really tricky. It was much worse than I thought it would be. The car was very, very difficult to drive today for me. I'm grateful I kept it out of the wall, because that's really where it wanted to go most of the time. There's a lot to take from this. Besides that, I'm just acclimatizing to the new power unit in wet conditions, all the different settings it requires, a different way of driving, a different steering wheel configuration. I did the best I could. I even got up to the lead at one point. It was just about getting guidance on how much the rain was coming. That's what was missing. Hamilton has spent a good amount of time with Ferrari since January, when he was officially introduced to the team. They provided some testing in Fiorano in Spain with the 2022 and 2023 cars, along with 3 days of pre-season testing in Bahrain and, of course, time in the simulator. Still, the adaptation seems much tougher than expected. But beyond that, the reality check of the SF25's pace in Australia was a cold shower on almost all simulations. After pre-season testing, Ferrari was tipped as the closest team to McLaren and a contender to fight Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri for the 2025 titles. Norris even said after FP2 in Australia that Ferrari was a team he feared most for qualifying and the race. I know how much fuel and other things Ferrari had in many of the test sessions. You'd be surprised how fast they'll be this weekend. That prediction couldn't have been further from the truth. Ferrari looked lost in strategy, driver-to-box communication. And worst of all, the SF25 proved in the opening race of the 2025 season that it's a slow car. Back on track, when Lando Norris began lap 56, the penultimate of the race, his teammate had just overtaken Pierre Gasly's Alpine to move back into the points in 10th place, with a little over 3 seconds behind Lewis Hamilton and 3.8 behind Charles Leclerc. The Ferrari duo had intermediate tires with 7 laps on them at that point, 3 laps fresher than Piastri's intermediates on the McLaren. At the time, it seemed that 9th place was secure for Hamilton. But that wasn't the case. Piastri not only closed the gap in under 2 laps, but also overtook Hamilton around the outside at turn 9, and even crossed the finish line 2 seconds ahead of the Brit. just 6 tenths behind Leclerc, who was desperately trying to catch Hülkenberg's Alba. And to make matters worse, Lewis also had to watch George Russell, his former teammate, on the podium, while rookie Andrea Kimi Antonelli, his replacement, finished an astonishing fourth after having a 5-second penalty overturned. Antonelli started 16th, spun during the race, but recovered with brilliant overtakes and showed real racer maturity in the tricky conditions of Melbourne. For Ferrari, it was a horror show in the first race of the year. The Maranello team now has to pick up the pieces and prove that Melbourne was just an outlier. Their first chance to do so comes in China, with a race happening in the early hours of next weekend. But for now, the impression is that Ferrari is heading into the season as the fourth best team. And what about you, motorsport fans? What do you expect from Ferrari and Lewis Hamilton in the 2025 season? Let us know in the comments, and we'll be following everything closely for you. Come with us. Join World on Wheels.